Hey everyone, welcome to another top 10 list. This week's top 10 list, well, this was inspired by my last top 10/20 list, which was my top 10/20 favorite large size notes. I was going to do my favorite small size notes, but I started noticing how many of the error notes I had that were going into the small size section. So I decided why not put together my top 10 favorite errors. And what do you know? I had the same problem, so I figured, you know something? We're just going to do them all. So here are my top 20 error notes in my collection. And it's going to be a two-part episode, of course. The first one will be numbers 20 through 11. Second one will be 10 to 1. And I wanted to do this because it's important to see what the actual errors look like and to hear the description of the actual error. A lot of you watch my not an error videos about eBay scammers, and you can see when you look at a real error what a genuine error is compared to the stuff that they say are errors. You can understand why the stuff that I'm going to show you is worth money and the stuff that they're trying to scam you with is, well, worthless. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to go with an honorable mention, and if you look at this note, this one's a 1928 $5 Federal Reserve note, and if you look, you can see how dark the printing is here. You can see how dark the lettering is here. When this person found this note, they thought that it was an over-inking error. So they sent it in for grading. It was not me. I did not do it. Someone else sent it in for grading, and they did not give it the over-inking error. It was simply a darker print. So anytime you've got something that's just slightly darker, no, that's not considered an error. The back is fine. Nothing wrong with that there. But if you look at the front compared to any other note, this looks extremely dark, and no, not an error. Did not get an error designation. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're looking. So that was my honorable mention. All right, number 20. Starting off with one of the more common ones, this is called a gutter fold error. And what happens here is when they do the first print, that's this part here, everything is just fine and dandy. You can look at this and see that everything is just fine. There is no problem. But when they flip the paper over to print this side, the second print, the paper gets this little crease in it. So they print the note with the crease, and if you look, especially here, if you look here, you can see that there is a separation, and that crease maintained through the third print, and that's why the seal is split, and you can see the distance between these two digits here, the 4 and the 6, where that crease is, compared to what the 4 and the 6 looks like here. So this crease was in there when that was all printed. When you pull the note straight, you get a gutter or a channel that has no ink on it, and you know it's an error because if you look on the back, once again, the printing is correct. So this fold happened during the printing process. That's a gutter fold error. That's going to be number 20. Number 19. On occasion, ink will drop on a bill and it will smear. Now, when you look at this, that's a genuine ink smear, okay? People will find all kinds of little dots, miscellaneous little things. They'll be like, oh, look at this little tiny... No. That's what you're looking for. If you've got something like this, this is still considered a minor to moderate ink smear. So it's not even one of the major ink smears. So yeah, if you've got a little dot out of place, no, not an ink smear, not worth anything. You need something like this to be considered. Now, the way I know it's real is to start with, look at the black ink. It's the same. A lot of times when you see ink on a note, it'll have a bluish tint to it because most ink that is in pens or markers is actually very dark blue. It's not pure black. The ink on our notes is pure black, very similar to Indian ink, and that is what happens when you get black on black. You cannot see anything. The other thing is you'd consider this a very heavy ink smear, wouldn't you? So it must have bled through the paper, right? I mean, it's so dark you can't see anything. But if we turn it over, no, not a speck. Because the ink that's used is not absorbed by the paper. It doesn't go through the paper. So that's how you know when you've got a genuine ink smear. If you have a giant blob like this and it bled through the paper, no, that's not it, because that's a water-based ink compared to an oil-based ink. So that would be an ink smear. Now this is the black, and here's an example of the green. That was clearly a dot that got smeared. That would be on the back of a bill. So yeah, you can have it on the front or the back. You can have it in green or in black. Both of these are considered minor. This one's minor. This is minor to moderate. Major, you could have the entire note blacked out. So yeah, when you're talking ink smears, that's what you're looking for. All right, so that's number 19. Number 18. This is what's known as an alignment error. Now, if we look at the note, this particular note, you can see how the top is very thin, the bottom is very thick, but if we look at the back, everything is centered properly, okay? Also turns out this one has I didn't even see that before. We'll get into there's another. This is an offset print error. We'll get to that later. I'm simply talking about this being an alignment error. Now, what I mean by that is this side was printed correctly. When they turned it over, the front was actually not aligned properly. And then when they did the third print was aligned properly, but it looks miscut, or it looks misprinted because the second print is off. That's why you've got the serial number running through the signature here. That's why you have the seal so far down. The seal and the serial numbers are exactly where they should be. The problem is when they put the second print on there, it got shifted high. So the second print does not align with the first or the third print. That's an alignment error. Now, here's another example of an alignment error. You can see here the serial number runs through the word Washington. It's shifted far this way. The I actually overcuts the position G2. The other thing about this note is it has the grease pencil mark, which means they spotted this as an error. They marked it as an error to take it out of circulation and then left it in. So that's just a bonus little thing there. This is the only one of these I have, and it almost doesn't matter what the error is. As soon as you see their marking on there, that kind of increases the value. So those are two examples of alignment errors. That is number 18. Number 17. This is just a miscut note. It is severely miscut, and you know it's miscut. I shouldn't say severely. This is actually considered a minor miscut. If you look, the border is completely missing, and you can see it did cut into the note, and it cut in such a way that you can actually see a portion of the next note down here. That's an error. If you can see any white border here, then it would not be an error. If we look on the back, it looks like you can see a little bit of the white border. You can here, but you have to remember the back border is wider on all sides than the front border is. If we look at the bottom, I'm looking to see, yeah, you actually can see right here, this little black line. So there is a portion of the next note showing. So yeah, that is most certainly a cutting error. The note was printed correctly. It was just aligned wrong when they cut it. So they cut it so badly you can see a portion of the next note. That is number 17. Number 16. Here's another cutting error. This particular cutting error, make sure I got this right. This would be, I want to make sure I got it right. This is a fold over error, okay? And with a fold over error, what happens is everything was printed correctly on front and back, but then when they moved the note to actually get printed, this top edge got folded over, and when it got cut, you had this additional piece that's still here. On the front, you can see the fold. There's the fold right there where it was folded over, and this part here lines up directly with this part when it's folded over. So that would be a fold over error, or cutting error. Now, as cool as these are, the cooler version of these would be this one here, which is a $5 version. Once again, this corner got folded over, but it got folded over to an extent that it actually blocked the ink that was supposed to get printed here. So this fold over error is, let's see, make sure I got it right. This would just be a standard cutting error because there is no ink on there. and this would be a fold over error. So this one is going to be number 15. Number 15 with the fold over error here. Now, once again, if I was to take this and fold it back, you can see the portion that's missing. It's the word 5. And as we flip it over, there is that word 5. So yeah, just fold that back over and it would take over that spot there. These are very similar errors, but what makes them different is there is no ink. There's nothing that was printed on this particular one. So odds are this was the top note. I wonder if I can see that in the positioning. E1, yeah, so that's the top. 1 would be the top. Whereas this one, the fold over on it, this was probably on the bottom. H4, 4 is the bottom. That's the bottom corner, and that got folded in there. All right, so that's number 15. Number 14. This is known as a butterfly fold. Okay, a butterfly fold, you can see that down there on the bottom. It's kind of like a gutter fold. If we look at this side, the note is printed correctly on the first printing. In the process of flipping all the pages, this got this little wrinkle in it. So if you take this and were to refold it, this square here would be perfectly combined inside there. It then got printed with the wrinkle, and then it was cut. And once it got into circulation, someone was able to pull apart that, and you can see this gigantic area here. That's known as a butterfly fold, because like a butterfly wing, you've got this little thing here, and then you've got the flap like the wing hanging out there. So that's the butterfly fold. A little bit different than the gutter fold. The butterfly folds are much more dramatic, and I think they're pretty cool. But once again, yeah, you can see that because you've got not only the extra paper in that corner there, you can see the gap, and when you compare it on the back, there is no gap. It's very easy to think this little line here is a misprint, but it's not. It's just the outline of the 20 right there. So that one is number 14. Number 13. Got a couple of these. These are genuine over-inking errors. Okay, the seal on this is just ridiculously over-inked. They came back to back like this. You can see how heavily inked that is, and if you flip it over, you can see the wet ink transfer on the back. So these were seriously over-inked notes. Now that was over-inking on the federal seal, and then here is over-inking on the actual reserve seal. So that was interesting to see that. Of course, the back of this note, the back of this one's fine. It does say over-inking of district seal on the back. Over-inking error. So that is a genuine error. These, I don't know why the person didn't get them graded. Maybe they did, and they came back. Maybe this was the ones that came back as not verified or something like that. But these are the genuine deals as far as over-ink errors go. So when someone says, oh, look at that number, it's a little dark. No, that's not the case. This is what you're looking for over-inking errors. All right, that is number 13. Number 12. Number 12. This is what's called a solvent smear error. At a glance, it looks like this is just circulation damage. Because you can see his face is almost completely worn away. The thing is with this note, you can see the grade, choice 58 about uncirculated. This note is in really good condition. So for it to show this much wear, something must be off. And what this is when they clean the plate, they use an ink solvent to dissolve the ink that's left over on the plate. If they do not dry the plate, some of that solvent stays there and prevents the next batch of notes from being inked properly. If we look at the back of this note, the back of this note is just fine. So once again, if this was wear, you'd expect wear on both the front and the back of the note, and we don't see that. So because the note is in good condition, and because it's the problem is only on one side, that's your clue that this is some type of an error. So yeah, that's how we got the solvent smear error. That one is number 12. And finally this week, number 11. Here is the solid star error. Now, if we look at this star right here, that's what the stars are supposed to look like. They're supposed to be hollow. They're supposed to be a little blank spot in the middle. If they over ink the star, you will get what people call a partially filled star. That's not an error. That's just a heavy inking on that particular digit. Remember, a star is just another digit. So yeah, if these were a little thicker, you could see how you'd have a partially filled star. But the error happens when that little spot in the middle gets plugged up with either paper or ink or whatever the case is, and there is no opportunity for that to be filled. Now think about that. If there was an object, whether it be a little ball of paper or something, that means that the dead center of that would be the first thing to get printed. And that's how you end up with an with a solid star error. You can see this particular star, it's the same size. Okay, it's not bubbled out, or it's not rounded like it was over inked. The problem with this one is that there was something stuck inside that star. That's what makes this an error. You'll see, like I said, so many partially filled stars. A lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times those stars will be slightly bigger. They'll be thick and chunky. Even if they're not thick and chunky, they could still show a little bit there. And if I zoom in as much as I can on this, you can see it's the same color throughout. It doesn't get lighter as you go in the middle. Here's another example of that. This one's on a $1 bill. This is the one that I found in circulation. Once again, there's the regular star, and then we go over here and you can see the filled star. Once again, not heavy ink or anything like that. This is the genuine error. And yeah, well, I found this one in circulation, so I'm always proud of this one. They can be found if you look hard enough for them. All right, so those are the first 10 of the list. Don't forget to tune in next week for the official top 10 of my errors set. All right, guys, thanks for watching. And if you learn anything new, go ahead and hit that like button. If you like what you see and you want to see more, please subscribe. Love reading all your comments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.